Dear friends, and congratulations. This is the record comeback after lunch in this part of the world. Compliments from my side. Well. You always have two very tricky moments. A panel prior to the lunch and the first keynote speeches and panel after the lunch. But in this part of the world, we always say time is relative, not precious, but knowledge is something which we share as a precious thing, and that's the reason why we carry on with our program, with emphasizing something which will be included in the theme of connecting economies, empowering people, the new pact for the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is huge part of our culture, our history, which connects us. There is old Croatian statement which always says, put a finger in the sea and you're connected to every friend in the world. And that is actually true. So prior to the panel, we're going to start with the keynote speech. That is a very hard task, which will be done in such an easement because this lady knows this part of the world quite good. She is a former mayor of this beautiful town, a part of a Croatian parliament for many years, then on very high positions in European Parliament, Commission, and every other job she has to do. And some of them remember her as their teacher of English as well. So now we're going to carry on with our program with first keynote speech of the afternoon. I hope that you're ready and good to be back in your hometown. It's a pleasure to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker for the day, Dubravka Šuica, Commissioner for the Mediterranean from the European Commission. Nice to have you and welcome back home.
Thank you very much, dear Frane. Dear Minister of Economy, dear Ante Šušnjar, dear Secretary General of the Union for Mediterranean, dear Nasser, dear Secretary General of Gulf Cooperation Council, Jasem, dear Jasem, dear State Secretary of the Slovenian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, dear Mr. Štucin, dear Executive Director of European Maritime Safety Agency, dear Maja, and honorable guests, dear everyone, dear Madam Metelko, dear Andrea. So thank you very much for coming here. I want to host the organizers for yet another Dubrovnik forum, very established platform for international dialogue, providing space for reflection and debate. As you already heard, this is my hometown, so I feel really at home here. And as you know, Dubrovnik was always a bridge between cultures, bridge between religions, a bridge between peoples. And this is very important to know if we know some more facts from Dubrovnik history and during the time of Dubrovnik Republic. I think that there is no better place which fits better for our exchange on the new pact for the Mediterranean. Just to understand what is this about, President von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, decided to establish new portfolio on Mediterranean. The reason for it is that somehow people in the Mediterranean felt left behind and abandoned due to our focus on Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, Eastern Partnership. Due to our focus on Western Balkans, so people felt abandoned. So it's not only symbolically, but it's about substance. So she decided to establish new portfolio. But it's not only portfolio, which I have a privilege to be chairing this. It is also a new Directorate General, which is DG MENA. So we have completely new service, which is in charge for this part of the world. When I say MENA, it's Middle East and North Africa. So this is a very important part, and knowing what's going on in the world nowadays, we think that this was a good move from her side. Connecting economies and empowering people, which is the title of this panel, must be at the heart of our strategic vision. We know that the Mediterranean has the potential to be a hub of innovation, trade, and inclusive growth. So what I'm entitled to work on? I'm entitled to work on bilateral comprehensive partnership agreements with different countries. So one side of the story. Another side of the story is regional approach, so both. What we have been doing until now, as you know, we have already 3 agreements, one with Tunisia, one with Egypt, and I signed myself 2 months ago the agreement with Jordan, which we consider as the most stable country in that part of the world. What I will be doing, continuing working on these strategic partnership agreements. Now I think that the next one will be with Morocco. And I also, during my visit to Lebanon, I offered them that we start negotiations, so the next country will be Lebanon. Of course, as I see a representative of the Gulf countries are also very important, although Gulf countries are not Mediterranean as we know geographically, but Gulf countries are very important for us because we cannot imagine peace, security, and prosperity of the Mediterranean without involving Gulf countries. And this is why we want to be much closer to you than we have been before. As you know, there are security threats, there is erosion of multilateral order in the world, and the fading away of alliances. We are trying to establish this again, and this is why we have to boost our resilience, and we have to boost also our geopolitical influence. Just to understand, there is our new motto, which says Europe wants to be player and not only payer, because knowing at this moment, Europe represents 16% of the world GDP. At the same time, we represent 42% of the world development aid. So this is totally imbalanced. Knowing what's going on with new American administration, it could increase. This is the reason why we want to really to show that we are a player, and we will pay, we will continue doing this, but at the same time, we have to have a much bigger influence than we had earlier. When I say this, it's also about Israel, Palestine, it's about Syria, about other countries, also North Africa and Gulf. So what we are doing in this commission, everything is looked through the lens of competitiveness, because we have our 3 priorities, as you know. First one is competitiveness, second one is security, and third one defense. These three priorities, whatever we are doing or whatever we have been doing is about that. So when I say competitiveness, we want to create better connections with that part of the world. Now I'm speaking about energy. All of you know that we want to get rid of Russian fossil fuels. This is a known fact. How are we going to achieve it? We are trying to achieve it, but still we are dependent, as you know. So knowing that this part of the world has plenitude of solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen, so we want to produce renewables there, knowing that 1 megawatt hour is produced in Europe at 60 euro and in Middle East and North Africa at 30 euro. So what do we need? We need to build interconnectors. We need to build grids in order to bring this energy to Europe. This is one of the ways how we see how to use the potential of energy. It is very important, and I'm working very closely with my colleague Jorgensen, who is in charge of energy. It's not only about energy, it's also about trade, it's about digitalization, it's about education, it's about development, it's about people-to-people contacts. You know that we will be celebrating or marking 30th anniversary of Barcelona Declaration. This will happen in November, so far as I know until now, and our new Pact for Mediterranean, on which I have been working since the beginning of this mandate, will be promoted there in Barcelona in November on this occasion, but we will adopt this pact at the college on the 15th of October. What is this pact about? It is about document, but it's not document. We want to make it genuine pact, to start different approach with the countries of Mediterranean. We don't want to impose anything. We don't want to preach to these countries. We want to treat all the countries as equals. Of course, due to different regimes or to different democratic status in different countries, sometimes we always try to communicate with governments, which is very important, but sometimes we have also to consider and to consult others, which is think tanks, civil society, non-governmental organizations, academia. And at this moment, we are gathering different contributions from different interlocutors in order to make Pact real Pact, just to understand. It's not imposed from Brussels. It will be made in cooperation. So we are in the mid of the consultation process. During summer, we will gather everything, and I hope that this will be a good Pact and everybody will be happy. On Monday afternoon, there will be a meeting of southern ministers will come to Brussels from all the countries now, and we will discuss, of course, this Pact and the future of the region, just to understand that this is also one step in this process which I'm trying to explain. As I said, people are at the center of this Pact. People are at the heart. When I say people, people-to-people contacts, we think that young people are the most important in order to exchange, in order to communicate. It's about professional training, it's about jobs, it's about skills. And what we want to create and what we want to have as a legacy of this portfolio is network of Mediterranean universities. This doesn't mean that we will build new premises. It means that we will try to add curricula to already existing universities, be it in Beirut, be it in Alexandria, be it in Marseille. So we will try to create a network of universities where we can have young researchers, students. We can see our Erasmus Plus program, our Horizon program. Everything will be done there. So, and we think that Croatia is also very well placed for this, network of universities, but let's see how this will go on. So first pillar is people. Second pillar is potential of economies, which I already mentioned, energy. It's about Trans-Mediterranean Energy and Clean Tech Cooperation Initiative, so-called TMED. So we will work on this with North Africa and with Middle East. So our job and my job will be to break the regulatory, financial, and infrastructural barriers, because we have to admit that there are barriers, and we have, you know that we are working on simplification now in European Union, but we have also to adapt laws and regulatory systems there. Just to understand, nobody will invest in the countries where there is no rule of law, fundamental rights, democracy. Nobody will put his or her capital there if it's not safe. So this is important that we have in our organization, our institutions like European Investment Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Bank. So these institutions should be there, and this is the reason why we are trying to help and cope with these systems and countries to use all this. But otherwise, also European companies wouldn't feel safe to invest there. And I think that Croatian minister, my dear friend and colleague Ante Šušnjar, will speak or will share his perspective on this. When we speak about connectivity, this is also very important. It's not only, it is transport, but there is digital connectivity nowadays. Nowadays, we don't ask someone where you are, but how well you are connected. This is the question nowadays, and this is important why we work on Medusa, which is, I hope that you are familiar with this, digital submarine fiber cable, which will connect all the countries. We also talk about ELMED, which is electricity link between Italy and Tunisia. When I mentioned earlier Tunisia, Egypt, and Jordan, these partnership agreements contain energy, trade, people-to-people contact, digitalization, and migration is always there. Unfortunately, in public, there is a I would dare say there is a wrong perception that is also that everything is about migration. Migration is only one part where we decide how to deal with this. You know that I'm also in charge of demography. It's not only Mediterranean. Knowing that more than 50% of people in that part of the world is younger than 25 years. So there is a lot of potential there. At the same time, knowing that Europe is shrinking and Europe is so-called aging continent. We are trying to change the narrative nowadays. We don't call Europe anymore aging continent. We are saying we are longevity continent. But this is based on the fact that we live in last 50 years, Europeans live 10 years more on average, which means that we are really longevity continent. This is another story. We have to rethink, reconsider our regulations, laws, and everything, because everything is adapted to 65, 70, and it's over. Now we have to adapt to 80, 90, and 100 years old people, and this is another story which I have to also to develop. But just to know that there is a lot of potential there. We lack here in Europe, we lack human capital, we lack people, we lack skills, and we need to import some of them. This is why I'm connecting this with migration. I'm talking about legal pathways. I'm not talking about illegal migrations. For those, we have new return directive, and those who are not legally here in Europe will be brought back, not to say expelled. This is our position in the Commission. So what are we doing in order to create legal pathways? We are signing talent partnerships with these countries. So we have already talent partnership with Morocco, Egypt, and Tunisia. We will continue working on it. What I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that we want to be politically correct, and we don't want to create brain drain there. So if we take all doctors, all engineers from that part of the world, this wouldn't be correct. This is why we are signing balanced talent partnerships in order to make situation okay there and also in our countries, just to understand it. Everything is about that. I know that the topic of migration is very sensitive, and in some countries it creates a lot of tensions, but this is about legal migration, just to understand. So Elmed, Medusa, Great Sea Interconnector between Cyprus, Israel, and Greece. Then there is a Gregi Interconnector between Egypt and Greece. Then there are many other. Also H2 Med project, which is green hydrogen corridor linking Portugal, Spain, and France, with the potential extension to North Africa. So, and I have to mention IMEC here. You know that Prime Minister of India was 2 weeks ago was here in Croatia. IMEC is one of the very important projects, one of the most important projects, how to connect Asia and Europe. It will start in India and it will finish somewhere here in Mediterranean. So it's very important to know that this India, Middle East, Europe corridor is going on, and it involves investments in ports, in energy transmission, in digital transformation, infrastructure from India, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Israel, Jordan, Cyprus, Greece, and Italy at the moment, just to understand. And coming back to the third dimension, I mentioned people, I mentioned economy. The third dimension is security. Security, as all of you know, nowadays it's one of the most important topics. We speak about disaster preparedness, we speak about combating migrant smuggling, and we are speaking about maritime security, which is also very important, knowing what's going on. And I welcome participation of European Maritime Safety Agency and Maya here, because it will, I hope it will bring some novelties to our discussion on this. So we want to deliver on ground by fighting terrorism and organized crime, while also preventing radicalization. This is something which we have been working on. And as I said, legal pathways is something which is very important. So just to mention Union for Mediterranean, because I see my dear friend Nasser here, who is now chairing this organization. We see Union for Mediterranean as our implementing partner. Is it partner? Implementing partner. So someone has to implement what we have been saying, what we adopt. So who is going to do it? So we think that the most important organization is exactly the Union for Mediterranean, because this is the only organization, it's not now political, this is the only organization which brings everyone around the table, which means all the countries, including Palestine and Israel, just to understand. This is the only organization where everybody is sitting at the same table, including Turkey, including Western Balkans, Mediterranean partners, and that's it. So we are relying on you. So there will be a lot of deliverables. Med9, as you know, Croatia is also a member of Med9, platform of Southern European Union members, strong Mediterranean voice there in the Adriatic dimension. Next year we will take over chairmanship of Med9 presidency from you, from Slovenia. And let us, to conclude, let us not forget the 3Cs initiative. 3Cs initiative linking the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic regions, where Croatia is holding the presidency again. So this is something which is very important and fits well in my mandate, just to understand, although I'm not representing only Croatia, but all 27, just to understand. So we think that this 3Cs initiative can become a key driver of regional cohesion and connectivity, bridge gaps, and strengthen resilience across the Mediterranean region. So looking forward to cooperate with all of you. I think that this is good opportunity to discuss all these issues. Maybe we can, as I don't know what will be the conclusions of the panel, but we can take from you today conclusions and try to make them part of the new pact for the Mediterranean, because we surely have forgotten something. So this will help us, this will enrich us, and thank you once again for coming here to my hometown, Dubrovnik.
Thank you, Mrs. Šuica, for joining us as the Commissioner for the Mediterranean of the European Commission. As you've heard, Croatia is all about diplomacy and legacy. Diplomacy was shown by hometown Dubrovnik because they were the best in diplomacy. Even though we are talking about Mediterranean, we called our friends from the Gulf region because when we calculate the Suez Canal, then we are connected and it's approved. And legacy is something also that connects Mediterranean. In 1979, in the beautiful town of Split nearby, the Mediterranean Games were held. And since 1979, because of one Croatian guy and designer, all the Mediterranean countries have the same emblem, because Croatia connects. So you know that one, but it was a long time ago, so it's time for new challenges and maybe some economy statements so we can improve even better. That's the reason why we carry on with the panel discussion about economies, empowering people, and the new pact for the Mediterranean. I hope that you're ready. I'll be calling all the panelists, and at the end, lovely gentlemen who will be asking hard and tough questions in about 32 minutes. Hopefully. I'm just joking. Ladies and gentlemen, clap your hands for Minister of Economy of Croatia, Ante Šušnjar, joining us for this one. Nice to have you. Welcome. The seat is yours. We call the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Yasser Mohammed Al-Budayevi, to join us as well. Your Excellency, welcome. So we have Croatia, Kuwait, then we carry on to the land of Pharaoh, Secretary General Union for the Mediterranean, Nasser Kamel. Nice to have you from Egypt as well. Then we're back to Croatia, thanks to Executive Director of the European Maritime Safety Agency, Maja Marković-Kostelac. Thanks for joining us. And we have our dear friend, najboljši sused from Slovenia, State Secretary, Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, Marko Štucin. Hvala što ste s nama. The moderator of the panel will be dear and lovely colleague, Executive Director of the Arab Reform Initiative, Nadim Hori. So please, Nadim, the place is yours. Everything is heated and settled for the new pact. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction, and thank you for being in, thank you Croatia to hosting us today. So we have about 40 minutes to discuss what are major challenges. And Commissioner Šuica put it well, I think the task ahead of us, which is, can we turn these aspirations, this vision for renewed energy around European and Mediterranean relations 30 years after Barcelona into concrete projects, into something tangible? Because I think we would all agree that there's a high level of skepticism these days around the world about just speeches, commitments. We need to show that this can work, that there is new energy. Some of the themes have been mentioned. This notion of joint ownership of this pact, that this is not just an EU-driven proposal. Notions around the importance of people, mobility, a touchy, complicated subject, but also trade, energy, particularly renewable energy, investments, education. And we have a fantastic panel to try to see, each from your perspective, how we can turn some of these ideas into concrete projects and proposals. And I will ask our panelists to try to be short so that we have at least a chance to 2 rounds of questions, if you allow. And I'll start with our Croatian hosts, Minister of Economy, Ante Šušnjar. You have been, as minister, very keen to turn Croatia into a regional energy hub and, in a way, connect and knit together some of the Adriatic assets on renewables, on LNG ports, into wider Euromed corridors that are being discussed. From your perspective, what energy projects do you see could anchor this pact, could give it concrete meaning, and what would you see as, from a Croatian perspective, the main priorities for renewed energy, for a new pact for the Mediterranean?
Thank you. I would just highlight before that I start with energy that, and I want to thank Commissioner Šuica for the interesting presentation. And just to highlight one thing that she mentioned that is also in her scope, it is a demography. It is a key factor of the regional stability, and we as Europe must be aware that if we continue with this trend with the demography, it won't go well. We will need that amount of energy. So this is scope number 1 from my perspective, even though I am a Minister of Economy and Energy also. We as a Croatia, we have a strategic geographical position, and we already provided our solidarity to our neighbor countries by developing our infrastructure. It is developed in a way that it is more than sufficient for our domestic needs. As you know, we invested in 2021 in LNG terminal, which is 2.3 billion cubic meters capacity, and we are increasing it this summer to 6.1. Croatian needs are around 2.5. The rest is for our neighbors, for landlocked countries, and this contributes to the country's growing role as a regional energy hub for our neighbors. When we finish the pipelines also increasing the capacity, we will be able to provide the energy towards Slovenia, Hungary in greater capacities than now, but we will also be able to provide LNG gas to the Bavaria also. Very important to mention, these pipelines that we are building are already hydrogen ready, and we are ready for the renewable energy. In response to these developments, also in the parallel, the Adria pipeline continues to serve as a crucial component of the regional energy infrastructure and enabling the reliable transit of the crude oil, especially for the landlocked countries, in a context to abandoning the Russian fossil fuels. Also in Croatia, we see a great potential in our geothermal, because in the Pannonia area we have a great potential to explore and develop this geothermal for the heating, but also for the electricity production. And these are the pillars that will improve Croatians' resilience in food production, also in energy production. But when we see how world is developing very, very fast, we need huge amounts of energy. And also, we are amending our laws, and we are planning to develop the nuclear power plants on Croatian soil, and especially we see the opportunity in small modular reactors. Also, connectivity that Commissioner Šuica was mentioning in presentation, we are intensively working with the Italian side with the electricity interconnector. We are very well connected with our other neighbor countries, but there is huge space to move forward with our internal grid, because as a geographical position of Croatia, we need to improve our internal grid because of the resilience and transfer of energy from south to north of the Croatia. But this geothermal potential is highly valued from our side, and we are keen to develop it because it is a base load energy. It is energy that is produced 24/7, and it's 100% renewable.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move, we're talking about energy, we're talking about investments, so we're going to talk about the GCC. So, Secretary General, Your Excellency Budayri, the GCC has emerged as a key investor around the Mediterranean, but also in recent years as a key geopolitical player, as well, leveraging relations with Europe, with the US, but also increasingly with China, India, and other powers. From your perspective, so I think, and we've heard the Commissioner, everyone is looking to the GCC to become a key Mediterranean player. From your perspective, what role can the GCC play to support a pathway to prosperity and stability in the region as part of a new partnership with the EU, particularly when we know the challenges that face us in reconstructing Syria, hopefully soon starting rebuilding Gaza, Lebanon, Libya, the economic challenges of a number of countries in North Africa. What would you like to see from this pact, and what is the GCC willing to bring to the table at this point?
Thank you, Nadim, for hear me? Okay. Thank you, Nadim, for this introduction. I want to start at the outset to thank the Croatian government for inviting me for such an important forum. I'm honored to be the first GCC official to actually participate in this. The GCC, as you are all aware, has been engaging with many strategic partnerships, is keen to develop its relationship at different level with everybody, whether countries, states, or regional organizations. We truly believe that there is potential for a cooperation and development with the Mediterranean. I had the honor to sit today with my colleague Nasser, and we talked about it. There are so much we can bring to the table. We just need to study it first within us. This is now the first contact. Even though the GCC countries are already engaged with the Union for Mediterranean, with the Mediterranean countries, through the Arab League, because the Arab League has the status of observer in the Union of Mediterranean. So, and since the 6 of us are part of the Arab League. But what we would like to do is entertain the idea of coming as GCC to the Mediterranean to see the possibility of cooperation as we do with the Caribbean countries, Mercosur, ASEAN, C5, European Union. We have partnerships with everybody. We have regular ministerial meetings and regular summits. Why not with the Mediterranean? They are closer to us than our friends in the Caribbean, so we might as well initiate this move. But what we need to look at first, and I'll talk in the second question, I'd rather concentrate on maybe the challenges. But now let's talk about the positivity, what we can bring to the table. Commissioner Šuica talked about people, activities. She talked about energy, connectivity, electricity, and security. These are our specialties, and we've done so much with them. The electricity, the 6 of us are connected with each other with an electrical grid. A problem in my own country, and which has the most problem with electricity for strange reason, Kuwait, get cut. We get electricity from the furthest city to us, which is Muscat. So we're very good. We can help out with this. We have an authority, a GCC authority for that. Of course, talking about energy and renewable energy, as the minister just mentioned, also Madame Sweka knows that this year we're having first of its kind energy conference, GCC EU energy conference. I think talking about cooperation with the Mediterranean with renewable energy could be one of the subjects that we could entertain. But I want to go through a few numbers, and I hope I still have 1 more minute.
Sure.
You're talking about a population of 57 million, almost half of which are under 30. You are talking about growth in 25 and 26, economical growth 4.2. You are talking about GDP 2.1 trillion, the 6 of us, in 2023. We are expected to reach 6 trillion in 2050. Our GDP, as we speak in 2023, makes us the 11th economy in the world. Our total value, our sovereign fund value, controls almost 34% of the whole world's foreign investment, with the amount of 4.4 trillion. Our asset, so our value, market value is, our sovereign fund is 4 trillion. Our market value is 4.4 trillion. So these are numbers that we are so proud of. We made them in such a efficient and the right time, and we'd like to share them with others. We've been doing that with many other organizations. We are ready. We will entertain the idea, as I promised my friend Nasser, to see what are the possibilities of GCC positive cooperation with the Union for Mediterranean.
Thank you very much. And these are fantastic numbers, which the region obviously needs to address the many challenges, including adaptation to climate change, rebuilding, security, and training our talented youth for the future. Which brings me to His Excellency Nasser Kamel, Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean. I mean, your organization, all eyes are on it. You are the space where the EU and all the states around the Mediterranean, including, frankly, many states that don't talk to each other, are members. And if there's going to be a space to dialogue, to discuss, to turn this ambition into real regional collaboration and not simply bilateral relations, it's going to be through the Union for the Mediterranean. Can you tell us how you see the ability today of the Union for the Mediterranean to bring together states that often don't want to talk to each other these days? And I mean, we know the divisions, and they're not just in the Middle East, there's some in North Africa, other parts, but also to bring together not just the national actors, but something that you've emphasized in a lot of your interventions, that Union for the Mediterranean is also about relations between municipalities. It's also a relationship between the civil society, the business sector. Tell us a bit what you hope for this new pact, what is the energy, and what the Union for the Mediterranean can bring to the table in this very challenging context.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very important question. But let me echo first what my dear friend and colleague Jassim in thanking the Croatia and Dubrovnik for their hospitality and this very important gathering. And also point out to what the Commissioner explained eloquently about the significance of creating a dedicated commission for the Mediterranean. This is geopolitically extremely important, and I would also point out to the choice of the Commissioner, having chosen a true Mediterranean to lead that commission is in itself a very clear message about Europe's commitment to that region. And also what she mentioned in terms of how this pact is coming to life, this inclusive, consultative process that you have led, not only with us as intergovernmental organization or with the countries involved, but having included all the stakeholders, youth, academia, and everyone, makes it a collaborative project, and it will end creating a pact that will be based on co-ownership and based on partnership and not a donor-recipient type of relationship. In that context, as you rightly mentioned, the UFM, or the Union for the Mediterranean, is called upon to play an important role because of its regional dimension. As the Commissioner explained, there is a bilateral, very important, strategically important dimension, and there is a regional dimension, and this is where we can bring a significant value added to the Pact, especially that our new strategic vision actually is based on connectivity. By connectivity, we are talking about connecting people, connecting countries, and connecting economies. If you look at the Pact, you will see that our strategic vision does echo very closely with the Pact objectives. So the UFM can use, number one, its inclusive membership, as you mentioned, and as you both mentioned, the Commissioner and yourself, in terms of having everyone around the table within a very balanced governance structure. It's not a north-south or donor-recipient, it is a balanced governing structure. Using our convening power, and you mentioned, we bring people around the table who are not necessarily bilaterally on the best of terms. But when we bring them around the table, what we notice when we talk climate mitigation and adaptation, when we talk trade, when we talk gender equality, you would be surprised to see how much those countries are engaged and willing to work together towards achieving common goals when it pertains to sectoral activities, sectoral cooperation. So they can differ on geopolitical issues sometimes, but when it comes to real cooperation on the ground, I see a willingness even between those who do not necessarily agree. We can also help in terms of our the knowledge we build and the structure for cooperation that we build and the dialogue platform that we have to help coordinate many of the initiatives that will come out of the Pact, especially when it pertains to renewable energy and clean tech. The case was made obvious by the numbers, $60 here or 60 euros here and 30 euros there. And this is not only about economic rationale, it is also about employment. It is also about investment. And it's also about dealing with the galloping demography in the South. When you create those economic opportunity, you are creating the condition for those young men and women to stay at home and contribute into their country's economy, but also into the wider region, the energy independence. We can help also in our, by using what we demonstrated in terms of mobilizing political, technical, financial resources for specific projects, and I can give example if you want. So all of this, and also as you rightly mentioned, the fact that many of our layers of governance and many of our structures do deal with the civil society, with the private sector, with the youth. We have a youth strategy 2030 that is ongoing, with the women dimension, which is extremely important. Studies are showing if women are fully integrated in the economies of the southern Mediterranean countries, our GDP is poised to grow by 30% more than it is today. So gender equality is not only about ethical values, it is about economic progress and economic development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think that the potential is there, but one thing that's been very present today in the conversation is the issue of this sort of security aspect, and how do we overcome the security economy nexus to make sure that we have sustainable growth and that the region prospers given everything that is going on around us. So I want to now turn to Maya Slash, the Executive Director of the European Maritime Safety Agency. We know that shipping is the bloodstream of the Med trade, right? When we think about the Med as a region, it's going to be about shipping, it's going to be about the safety and security of the ships, but also, let's be honest, many people have started describing the Med as a graveyard in recent years, given the number of migrants dying trying to cross. There is also the broader issues of disruptions to supply chains, as we've seen, sometimes with conflicts that are not immediately on the Mediterranean. Can you tell us about some of the ways, from your perspective, from the European Maritime Safety Agency, how you are approaching the questions of safety and security for all across the Med, and what are some concrete projects that you think can really energize, benefit this new pact for the Mediterranean so that we can live the potential of a Mare Nostrum, a sea that really everyone finds themselves in?
Thank you, Nadim, and let me first of all thank the Croatian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for inviting me to participate in this panel and giving me the opportunity to put a bit of spotlight to maritime affairs and maritime transport in general. I would also like to thank Commissioner Šuica for giving us the thorough presentation of the objectives of the Pact, which immediately triggers the idea of how we can really integrate the maritime pillar of the future Pact. Indeed, as you said, shipping and ports, so the maritime transport is the backbone, not just of the Mediterranean, but on Mediterranean certainly, but I would say global economy. We all know this famous 90% of everything that we use or consume has, in this or that form, been transported by the sea. So although the resilience of the maritime sector has been proven in the last 10 years, ships were sailing irrespective of all crises. I have to say that according to the data that we host in EMSA, these recent attacks, particularly in the Red Sea, directly of international shipping over 100 times, is a precedent that will have long-lasting consequences. More than 70% of international shipping has been rerouted from one of the previously most busy transport route. Still, in Suez Canal, more than 50% decreased traffic, with the impact, of course, to Eastern Mediterranean and general Mediterranean, but particularly Eastern Mediterranean ports, and a long-lasting impact to sustainability, because the longer route means more oil burn and over 70% of more emissions. So certainly safety and security are the elements which are in our great focus, and although we are a European agency, we are presented and present in the Med region for over 8 years now, with a very concrete and tangible results, I would say, in raising safety standards, first of all, building the capacity of all Mediterranean states in addressing the challenges related to maritime safety and security. And we can do more, I would say, by putting the whole portfolio of our toolbox when it comes to increasing the capacities of Coast Guard authorities around the Mediterranean, when it comes to capacity to meet the challenges of pollution, of ship-to-ship transfer, which has raised in the Med due to the transport of Russian oil, mostly, for over 30%, which poses another safety and environmental challenge. So addressing these issues by using the capacities that we have, being that the maritime surveillance toolbox from the entire maritime picture to Earth observation to drones, which supports the from search and rescue. You have mentioned migrants, but from search and rescue in general in shipping, but also to identify better and earlier the potential pollution in the Med region. We are also, when it comes to maritime transport and shipping in general, in the very exciting transformation process towards less sustainable, more sustainable, towards decarbonized maritime transport. This is something that is, of course, a very challenging process, but on the other hand side, it's a very potential and absolutely necessary process. So Med has here the great potential, as Commissioner Šuica also mentioned, to become the real hub for the production and supply of different alternative fuels. And that would really have the immediate effect to the decrease of the environmental footprint in Med. Unfortunately, we are at the beginning of the process. Fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately, because we are in the process. Unfortunately, we are still at the beginning. So we still face in Med, for example, the increase of 15% of CO2 emissions only in the last 5 years. We have now 200% increase of methane emissions due to the intensive, among other things, intensive transport of LNG. So everything has its pros and cons, and what is important is that we work together with all those who play the roles in different countries at the partner basis. Because when you bring people together, and that is which connects us with the people-centric element of the Pact, when you really bring people around the same table, you not just create a network, you create the new energy. As our colleague from Union for Mediterranean said, you gather people around the same idea, the same objectives, and then the differences becomes less. And this is what we have witnessed through the implementation of SafeMed project. Over 3,000 people so far have been directly involved in the implementation in the project in the entire Med region, and we hope that this is going to not just continue but also increase.
Great, thank you very much. And continuing on this, moving to State Secretary Stucid from Slovenia. Slovenia has been heading the informal Med9 group, which is the European countries around the Mediterranean. And you know, I listened to one of the speeches you gave last year. You talked about the importance of connecting climate security, a secure neighborhood, and global competitiveness, themes that Commissioner Šuica has also mentioned this morning. Can you tell us how you see perhaps this new pact from your perspective as Slovenia, but also as leading this Med9, see the new pact as a tool that can address this notion of addressing security concerns, but also creating growth? You know, I think this is the inherent tension we're hearing a lot about. We're going to have to be able to deal with hard security, but at the same time, reignite the imagination, re-excite people, bring people around the table, new projects. How do you see that? And is there a role here for Med9 to play to address some of these issues? And we know that Croatia will be, I guess, succeeding Slovenia at the end of the year.
First of all, let me thank our Croatian southern neighbors for this hospitality. I'm really happy to be here in this panel. I will probably not be so open as the Speaker of the Parliament, but I promise to at least answer to your question. When it comes to Mediterranean and the questions that you posed, I would say we come probably from, we experienced probably the same story when we were joining European Union 20 years ago. So as the independent country, we were on the margin, so outside in the neighborhood of European Union. And then with our integration, we went through all these questions, so security, economic cooperation, political cooperation. And with this experience, probably we can also play some role when it comes to deeper cooperation with the Mediterranean countries. Now, I would like to point out that Slovenia definitely sees Mediterranean as from the positive angle. So our port of Koper, for example, is not only our only port of Slovenia, but it's also the biggest port for Austria, for countries without access to the sea around us. So it's really important pillar of our economy. And of course, everything that comes to Port of Koper goes through Mediterranean. Then the gas that we import the most of our gas from Algeria. And there are other examples where you have a lot of positive examples of the cooperation between my country and the Mediterranean countries. You mentioned our presidency of chairmanship of Med9 format. It's informal format in the European Union of 9 countries along the coast, from Portugal to Cyprus. And we try through this Med9 format to advocate for this positive approach to the Mediterranean. And I'm really glad Croatia will follow us, so we can also jointly, from our perspective, continue this story and back up this process of new pact. We are also a member of UN Security Council this year, last year, this year as well. So the topics, everything that is happening in Mediterranean is something that it's very close to our decision-making process at the moment. And when we are talking about the approach, peace is the first thing that we need to address. Peace in Mediterranean, peace in Gaza, peace in Middle East. This is a prerequisite for all other forms of cooperation. With peace, we get security, we get economic cooperation, we get people-to-people contact, and then we get a positive spiral of cooperation. And this is basically the idea that we are advocating. We are going to continue with this support. We don't have any burdens from the past, colonial issues or whatever. So we are really approaching our relationship with Mediterranean countries from this very positive angle, and I think we will keep pushing on to stay on European agenda, to stay on the as a discussion at the various councils. And I'm happy that next week we have a ministerial meeting with Southern Neighborhood, but also there's a point of the agenda, the Foreign Affairs Council, that we advocated for, and we think this is the right way forward, and this is our share in this topic.
So I'm very mindful of time, so I'm going to ask the organizers for 10 extra minutes, just because we started a bit late after lunch, and I'm going to ask you fire questions. You only have a minute to 90 seconds to answer. My apologies, it's just this thing is beeping red in my face. So, Your Excellency, Minister Shushnyar, you mentioned very big ambitions on energy. We know these are massive investments. Very, very briefly, what are your thoughts on how to best de-risk and build for the future? What would you like to see very concretely happen from the EU in the next 2 years, from the countries, from everyone around this table, so that these projects proceed forward? And my apologies, in 60 to 90 seconds, please.
First, as we have now also, it's a more deepening cooperation, and we are addressing very directly our questions and our intentions to the Commission. We need great support to develop these interconnections, to develop our ports. We are finishing our investment in Port of Rijeka, as a colleague from Slovenia mentioned, for their port. We have a port in Rijeka and Ploče that are ready to provide the goods, to meet the goods from the east and the west. And we in Croatia see our ports at the gateway for goods from the east to the west, and vice versa. And developing the programs on the EU level, and we are expecting now the announcement of the new financial framework to develop the geothermal energy, to develop interconnections, to develop and unify the grid on the EU level and also on a Mediterranean level. So in conclusion, with a coherent and inclusive response, the Mediterranean can not only avoid fragmentation, but emerge a more integrated, resilient, and strategic region in a global economy.
Definitely something we all hope for. Thank you very much. Your Excellency Budawi, hearing you speak, the potential is there, right? But there seems to be some challenges that are preventing this great potential, which seems natural to take its full shape. We know in the last 2 years we've seen an increase, at least in the frequency and intensity of exchanges between the EU and the GCC. A lot more summits, a lot more forum you mentioned as well, but potentially a summit over renewable energy. What are the key current challenges that are hindering, in your view, cooperation between the GCC and Mediterranean countries on a regional level? And what would be on your wish list, again, in 90 seconds maximum, please?
Well, let me reassure everybody before I go into the challenges that we are really considering and entertaining the idea of further cooperation and development of our relationship with the UFM and other countries. So is that clear, Nasser? I can see 3 challenges. First of all, we need some sort of governance for this relationship, and that's why Nasser and I were talking, and we talk further. We need something to put on the table so we know exactly where to go. Number 2, security, and I think Maja was very, very spot on. We know with our own experience what we are facing with the Houthis in the Red Sea. We need also to make sure that there is a clear security in the Mediterranean, because this is a huge part of their relationship or developing this relationship. Thirdly, I think Israel might be, one way or another, a hurdle for our relationship with the Mediterranean. Israel needs to take its responsibility. Israel needs to know what to do in order to let other partners get into this.
Thank you very much. Very concrete. And moving to Your Excellency Nasser Kamel, you know, we want the Med to be a bridge and not a dividing line. This is something that you wisely have said in the past. How do you know, and commissioners start by saying that this new pact is supposed to be people to people, right? Not just governments. I mean, we understand some of the big projects are going to be government to government, big institutions, but the real energy for the Med relations is going to be from the people to people, the younger generation, the civil society, the business connections, the municipalities, all of this. Where do you see, how do you think the new pact can better engage everyone around the Mediterranean to really reach its potential of people to people, knowing full well that the last few years have not been easy? We're seeing more, I mean, this is not where we were 30 years ago in Barcelona, where everyone was excited. There's increasing cynicism, there's increasing incomprehension on different sides of the Mediterranean. What would you like to see, and what can the Union for the Mediterranean, if there is the right support from the EU, hopefully as well from the GCC, can really step up to be that platform for people-to-people exchanges?
Well, I'll be blunt in my answer by saying, and I'll echo what Jassim has just said, my friend, is that the recent development since October 7th in Gaza has definitely impacted the perception of Europe on the southern Mediterranean side of the Mediterranean, including in the Gulf, of course. And this, I'm talking here about the people. I'm not talking about states, more the people than states. I give always the example of my own children who are not really political at all, and in the last couple of years they are extremely agitated by what they see on the screen every single day, and they ask us, Europe is talking about a rule-based order, about respect of human rights, about what is Europe really doing? Is it just declaratory diplomacy, no action taken, and that is an issue. So I'm hoping for the Pact and the Commission for the Mediterranean and the UFM to be able to fill that gap by increasing the intensity of people-to-people exchange. This will be done by mobility scheme, as you just mentioned, would be done by enhancing and improving Erasmus. And I'm dreaming not only to create, to enhance the Erasmus Plus program, but to have an Erasmus Med, where a young European comes to the Southern Mediterranean and vice versa, and also by this idea of bringing the academia together. Working on the civil society, and we are very well equipped to do that, working on the real stakeholder would definitely has a huge impact on the policy, and we shouldn't deal with the youth and the stakeholder as just a listener. They should be part of the decision-making process when it comes to cooperation between the north of the Mediterranean and the south of the Mediterranean.
Thank you very much. And Executive Director of EMSA, in your view, what would be the sort of single EMSA tool or program or initiative that, in your view, could deliver the quickest impact if the right support is given, and we're talking in the next couple of years, to give this new impetus to the Pact? What would you like to see? What's on your top of your wish list?
Thank you for this question. I wouldn't say it's a single tool. I would say it's an integrated toolbox. We call it EMSA Integrated Maritime Services. So I would like to see our ability to support the implementation of the Mediterranean Pact by all the tools that we have built and we are constantly building in the house using state-of-art technology, being that Earth observations, so satellite images, drones, underwater drones, very important for critical maritime infrastructure, which we didn't tackle today, to, of course, the integrated situational awareness. State-of-art technology, but you can have fantastic technology. If you don't have people, you have nothing. So I would say the key pillar is the capacity building, harmonization of procedures, and working together. So this is what we are also offering through EMSA Academy.
Great, thank you. And I will conclude with you, State Secretary. You've mentioned in the past climate security as a strategic issue, and it obviously is for the Mediterranean. From your view, what would be the sort of Mediterranean project, so not bilateral, a Mediterranean regional project or priority project that, in your view, could best translate that concept of a regional climate security initiative that would bring everyday benefits to citizens, so people would feel this is, you know, this is our common space? Is there something that you feel, either from discussions from the Med9 or elsewhere, that could be expanded to include other parts of the Mediterranean?
Well, I would not go into, you know, the discussion about the concrete projects, but because we don't have time. But I would just say the only way for such projects to happen is more political cooperation, because the European Union cannot by itself achieve really high goals without neighborhood cooperating with it. So I would answer by more political cooperation would also mean better results in this field as well.
I think this is a great way to conclude. We need a new political energy to accompany the new pact. Please join me in thanking our panelists and thanking Commissioner and thanking our host. Thank you.